Hello, today our recipe is cinnamon biscuit roll-ups. Alright, so this is the biscuit method, so the target is biscuit method and measuring accurately and following directions. First we're going to do is the bullets at the top of the page, so preheat your oven to 400 degrees. We bake biscuits in a hot oven. And we're going to grease your muffin tin. Now this recipe makes 6, so at school we have the little 6 muffin tins, but this one has a dozen. So if you want to make the double recipe, by all means, but otherwise you're just going to grease 6 of the muffin tins. So keep your tin upright and give it a light coating, but just do make sure there's a pretty good coverage all around. And if you find that it's not doing a good coverage, you can actually just take a piece of paper towel, which I will get here, and just smear it around just to make sure it is really nicely covered, okay? Like so. And I like to just wipe the top as well. Like that. Okay, so that is ready. So in your large bowl, you are going to put your dry ingredients. The dry ingredients are the first 3 ingredients on your left of your recipe. 250 mils of flour. Scoop, level off with the straight blade, and put it into your sifter in the large bowl. To that, you're going to add 10 mils of baking powder. We're using magic baking powder here. So 2 5-ml spoons, make sure you level it off. And then to that 1 ml of salt. Just a little spout. And then sift that into your bowl. Now when we're doing the biscuit method, we use a cold hard fat. Very different from when we use making muffins. Muffins, we use a liquid fat. Now, I have 2 pieces of butter here. This is going to be for in the biscuit here. But I'm not going to use all of it. I just want to show you how much 45 mils is. Normally I cut it up for you at school. But to get the 45 mils, this is about 125 mils. I take a block of butter and cut it into that width. And then this is 125. So then I'm just going to gently just mark it into thirds. So each third will be 40 mils. 40, 80, and 120 is what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so I've got it into thirds. Now you're going to cut the 1/3 off, which is about 40 mils, like so, and put that in. And then to get the other 5 mils, I would cut the other one again. So you have the other 2/3 like that, and then just cut the about that much off there, and there you have 45 mils. Okay, so that is about. Now, if you don't get it exactly right, it really is not that big of a deal. That one's not that crucial, okay? So I've got the butter in here, and now I'm going to use my pastry blender to cut the butter in. If you do not have a pastry blender, you can use the grater on this large grater and just grate the butter like this into the flour, and it works beautiful, all right? But I'm going to show you how to use the pastry blender. So you're going to push the pastry blender over top of the butter pieces. Now in the beginning it's going to stick in your pastry blender, but the more you work it in, the less it will stick into the pastry blender. So what I mean by that is you can see it's really stuck in there. You're going to have to use your fingers to push it down and then work it on top, like so. And then you're going to turn your bowl, and this is how, and lift the pastry blender and keep pushing it down on top of the butter pieces. And again, stop, lift it up, take it off. It's a bit of a hands-on experience here. And turn your bowl, and just keep working it in. This will take a minute or 2. And it definitely gets easier as you, the more you do this. Just like anything else in life, practice definitely helps. Okay, so again, keep pushing it off. And once it doesn't stick anymore, usually that's a good sign that it's ready. What you want is you want the little bits of butter to look like pieces of Rice Krispie kernels, these about even in size. You do not want big chunks of butter in there. You want to have kind of small chunks, even in size. You can't do it too much, so remember you do want little bits of butter throughout. We use this method whenever we make biscuits or pastry. All right, so there we go. So and you can see it's not sticking on here anymore, and you've got little bits of butter throughout. I'm going to put that aside. Now, another sign of a biscuit is not to overmix it. So similar to when we made the muffins in that regard. Now when you add your measured milk, this is about 120 eye level on the counter like this. Don't add it all at once, just in case you've measured not accurately. This is really important because today we want to make a dough that we can roll out. We don't want it too sticky, all right? So add 3/4 of it, make a well in the middle, not all of it, and then stir it around, and you might not use it all. And you want it to come together into a ball, so I don't think I'll be using mine all, I can already see that. Really depends on also the weather and how much humidity is in the air. Apparently that is what I've been told. So stir it until it just comes together into a ball. So rather a little on the drier side than too wet. Okay, that's perfect. You can see it's coming together like so. And you just take it off. I'm just going to take this off with my fingers, gather it into a ball. So when you touch it, it should not be sticking onto your fingers. Now, if it is, add a little more flour. Okay, so troubleshoot. You should be able to pick it up like this and have a nice dough. And you can see the bowl is empty. Now, you're going to knead this 8 to 10 times, only minimally. So this, and put a tiny little bit of flour on your counter, not very much. Students are always tempted to put too much flour on the board. A little is better than too much, okay? We're going to knead now. Then we're going to knead 8 to 10 times. To knead, we're going to use the heel of our hand, and this is just to bring the dough together. Push down, fold the dough over, and then push down. Turn, fold over, push. Turn, fold over, push. Turn, fold over, push. Turn, fold over, push. And one more time. Turn, fold over, and push. And it should come together into a nice ball like that. And that is ready. Now, we're going to roll. So this is the fun part. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my board here, just a little bit. And I'm just going to roll it in the flour there. I also like to roll my rolling pin in the flour as well. Just going to move this over. And we're just going to make it into a rectangle. Now, when you're rolling, you don't want to, this is not like Play-Doh. This means that you can't just re-roll it and start over. What happens then is you get a really tough biscuit. So once you start, you're committed, okay? It's a little hard to get the rectangle shape. Looks easy when I do it, but it does take practice. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly a rectangle. It's fine. It's a pretty forgiving dough, okay? So this dough, this is going to be create kind of like a pretend cinnamon bun, all right? This is a really awesome recipe for me. If you're really in the mood for a cinnamon bun, but you don't want to make the yeast dough, and it goes really quick. I used to make this a lot for my kids when they were young and had friends over, and everybody loves this, all right? So there we go. So you can see I'm just shaping it with my hands like this to get that rectangle shape. Now, if you want to make sure that you have lots of rolls, you want to make it a little wider. The wider it is, the more pin rolls you will have on your biscuit. Okay, so I'm going to just like that. And just make sure that you check every once in a while that you can lift the dough up. Okay, if it's sticking, you just add a little bit more flour. Okay, remember, little is better than too much. All right, we're almost there. Just going to go like that. And then I just like to shape it with my fingers like that, and I'm just going to make it a little bit wider. And you do need to have it this length, and I'll lift it up for you to see, because you do want to make 6. Okay, so it's about this big. All right, once that's done, you're going to spread it with butter. Now, this is soft butter, so you want to make it nice and soft. If it's not soft enough, you can just microwave it to soften it up. And you don't need to measure. It says 15 to 30 mils. You really, honestly, don't have to measure. So just take and spread this butter on. And this is what's going to create that nice gooey layer in the biscuits, so just make sure you're generous with this part. And spread it on. And I like to leave the top part a little bit on the drier side. And that, if you look at your picture and your recipe, it should show you that on your recipe. Maybe not, I'm not sure. I think mine doesn't have it, but maybe yours does. All right, to that you're going to add your brown sugar and cinnamon. 80 mils of brown sugar, And you don't need to pack it down too hard, just lightly. 80 mils. This is approximate because this is the filling. Now, there doesn't tell you how much cinnamon. So for the cinnamon, I like to use about 10 mils, okay? So 2 5-mil spoons, and again, this doesn't have to be super exact, so 2 5-mil spoons of cinnamon. And then you just mix that up. And then put that on, and I'll show you. You just dump it on, like that. And then you just spread it over. A few little lumps is totally fine. Mine has a few lumps there. Brown sugar tends to get a bit lumpy. Now, I'll just tell you a few options if you're doing this at home and you want to add some other things to it. You can add chopped nuts to this. You could also add grated apple, a layer of grated apple, and it tastes great, okay? Once you've got the cinnamon brown sugar mixture on, I like to take my rolling pin and just push it in. And that's just going to make it so it's a little bit easier to roll. And now you're going to roll, you're going to lift it up. And it should be quite tight, but I like to just lift it so you don't push the filling out, but still keep it quite tight. Roll it up like so. And then you're going to pinch it. Now don't worry about what it looks like at this point, but do pinch it so that it stays together. So I like to go over it a couple times like that. Turn it upside down, and now I have my little cutting board here, and I'm just going to put that on. Now you want to cut this into 6 pieces, all right? So the best way I like to do it is first mark it, okay? Don't cut until you've marked it, just so make sure that you get the right amount. And then you just kind of eyeball it and make 6 like that. Now when you're cutting it, it's really important that you don't do the zigzag thing like this, because if you do that, you're going to twist the dough and it's going to look funny when it bakes. So you want to do just a straight up and down motion with a sharp knife. Make sure you have a hand or fist on top, and then just down like that. Okay. Now always the end pieces are always going to be a bit smaller, so I like to put them, if you look on my pan here, the inside ones will always take longer to bake than the outside. So you're going to put the biggest ones on the outside. The biggest ones would be the middle pieces, okay? So like that. And then these are the outside pieces, and just plop them in, press it in like so. Now these get baked in a hot oven for about 18 to 20 minutes, I believe. And I will show you another demo on how to make the icing. So we're going to put them in, middle rack, head back. And I'm going to set it for 18 minutes, and then I'll check it and keep an eye on it, okay? Thank you. So I'm just going to check them, and I think they look good. Yes, they do. So mine took 18 minutes. And so the way to check for doneness is they should be golden brown, and then when you press on the middle, they should bounce back. They shouldn't be like super soft in the middle, and mine look good. All right, so that looks perfect. So you're going to let them set for about 1 minute, and then you're going to take them out of the pan, and we're going to make a glaze, okay? So the recipe, this is the second side, and it says icing. Now, just a note about this recipe was made for the kitchen of 4 of you, so there are 2 recipes of this, okay? So if you're just making 6 like this, you would use half the recipe for the icing. Otherwise, it makes way too much, okay? So I'm going to just make a half of the recipe. So that means I'm going to use, instead of 125 mils, so 60 mils of icing sugar instead of 125. To that, some vanilla. Vanilla is just for flavoring. If you don't have to add it in, and it doesn't have to be exact because this is just for flavoring. So about 1.5 to 2 mils of vanilla. And then for the liquid, for icing like this, we're making a drizzle icing. You can use milk or water. I'm going to use milk, and it is about, I'm just going to use one of these larger spoons, about 1 of these, okay? Now a little goes a long way. Rather add a little bit too little, and then you can always add more. And we're just going to just stir and let it absorb. It might be about 1.5 spoons. And so you want it to drizzles on so that when you pour it off your spoon, it's a little bit thick, just about there. So I'm going to add maybe, a little bit, a tiny bit more. So not even half, just a couple of dribbles of milk. Like that. And then you just give it a really good stir, and it should be smooth and shiny. And you can see I'm really spinning it around a lot. And then when you just drizzle it off, and that is what you should be getting, all right? Now, I think the biscuits are ready to take out. They just need to sweat a little bit before you release them. And you just lift them up and put them on a wire rack, give them a twist. And hopefully they come right out. Don't they look lovely? Smell fantastic. Honestly, I hope you do make these. Give it a twist, take it out. Now, if you don't want to put icing on, you certainly don't have to. This is entirely optional. And then when you have this lovely glaze here, you just go and you just drizzle it on top like this when they're still warm, and it is superb. And it makes plenty of icing. So remember, if you're making just the 6, just do half of the icing. And if you're making the double recipe, then just make the full 1 set of the icing as written, okay? And there you go, freshly made cinnamon buns. Enjoy.